Imagine a scenario where all your beliefs about intelligence, its importance, and its benefits turn out to be wrong. What if the pursuit of knowledge and genius is not a blessing, but rather a heavy burden, a source of disappointment and deep sorrow? Stay with us, and perhaps by the end of this exploration, you will reconsider your attitude toward intelligence. Arthur Schopenhauer, a prominent thinker, held radical views that still evoke surprise today. He argued that intelligence, contrary to popular belief, harbors hidden threats underestimated by most. In his view, these threats rob us of peace, joy, and the ability to enjoy life to the fullest. In this exploration, we will uncover the secret of intelligence as Schopenhauer saw it, explain its relevance, and show how this knowledge can change your perception of the mind and the world around us. Arthur Schopenhauer, a philosopher born in 1788, was a person who knew firsthand about the hardships and adversities that lie in wait for a person on life's path. The era itself, with its suffering, unpredictability, and bitter disappointments, had a tremendous impact on the formation of his philosophical views. While other thinkers of his circle were entirely absorbed in ideas of progress and the omnipotence of reason, Schopenhauer chose a different path, turning his gaze to the dark sides of human existence. He was completely uninterested in lulling people with flattering illusions about their limitless possibilities. On the contrary, he ruthlessly tore away the veils of uncomfortable truth, and one of the philosopher's most striking revelations was the idea that high intelligence comes at a price. Schopenhauer viewed intelligence not simply as the ability to solve puzzles or accumulate encyclopedic knowledge. For him, it was more of a double-edged sword, an instrument capable of raising a person to unprecedented heights, but also plunging them into the abyss of despair. The philosopher was convinced that the higher a person's intelligence, the more acutely they feel the weight of life's adversities. Just think about it. Surely everyone has experienced a sense of alienation and disappointment that arises as they delve deeper into understanding the surrounding reality. This is precisely what Schopenhauer was talking about. The philosopher reveals an intriguing paradox. Intelligence, like a double-edged sword, expands the horizons of our perception, but at the same time makes us more susceptible to suffering and the imperfections of existence. The brighter the flame of our mind, the thicker the shadows it casts on the walls of our soul. A discerning mind, according to Schopenhauer, is capable of seeing through the veil of illusions and self-deception, the soothing lies we lull ourselves with, to make existence more bearable. It recognizes the futility of the relentless pursuit of elusive desires, the transience of triumphs, and the inevitability of losses. Such awareness can undoubtedly lead to profound insights, but it can also plunge us into the abyss of loneliness, depression, and alienation. Schopenhauer's insights resonate strongly with the concept of existential dread, a concept that later gained widespread recognition through the works of thinkers such as Soren Kierkegaard and Jean-Paul Sartre. The deeper our understanding of the universe and our place in it, the more acutely we feel its indifference to our fate. This is a burden that people with high intelligence feel most acutely. Schopenhauer argued that heightened awareness can even deprive us of the ability to find solace in the simple joys of life. A person with less developed intelligence may well be content with mundane activities or superficial hobbies, while a discerning mind often sees through these distractions, finding them empty and unsatisfying. The question of whether intelligence is inherently evil does not have a definitive answer. Arthur Schopenhauer, while acknowledging the value of intelligence, urged us to see it only as a tool, not a panacea for all ills. The philosopher argued that many gifted people make the mistake of relying excessively on their minds in the search for happiness, which, in his opinion, is not the result of knowledge or reflection, but stems from a simpler and, paradoxically, less intellectual source: peace of mind. Everyone has probably encountered a situation where excessive thinking becomes a real torment. Sleepless nights spent scrolling through various scenarios, analyzing and rethinking events, trying to find answers to unanswerable questions. All this, according to Schopenhauer, is the curse of intelligence, a restless mind that cannot stop in its search, even when there is nothing to look for. In this regard, a logical question arises. If intelligence is a double-edged sword, should we abandon the pursuit of knowledge or consciously dampen our awareness? Schopenhauer's answer sounds surprisingly pragmatic. The philosopher did not call for the abandonment of intellect, but emphasized the need to control its manifestations. He believed that cultivating calmness, inner peace, and detachment is an antidote to the confusion generated by an overactive mind. According to Arthur Schopenhauer, achieving mental equilibrium requires a person to accept several fundamental truths about existence. First and foremost, it is necessary to realize that suffering is an integral part of human existence. Instead of fighting it or naively trying to avoid it, one should learn to live with it in harmony. Secondly, it is important to recognize the limits of one's knowledge. Regardless of the level of intelligence, there will always be mysteries beyond our understanding and questions for which it is impossible to find definitive answers. Accepting this fact can save us from the exhausting pursuit of absolute certainty. Finally, Schopenhauer urged us to seek meaning not in grandiose achievements or intellectual victories, but in the simple, fleeting moments of beauty and emotional connection that life offers. In a vibrant sunset, in a moving melody, in a quiet conversation with a loved one. These treasures, in his opinion, are beyond the reach of even the most brilliant mind. However, herein lies a paradox. Schopenhauer argued that the highest degree of tranquility is achieved through self-denial, through the renunciation of the very essence that strives for understanding and control. This radical idea, rooted in Eastern philosophical traditions, particularly Buddhism, had a significant influence on his worldview. Arthur Schopenhauer, subverting egocentrism, proclaimed the possibility of liberation from the endless cycle of desires and torments, which reason often only exacerbates. What does this mean for each of us? How do Schopenhauer's revelations about the nature of the intellect relate to our lives? It is worth pausing for a moment to think about this. Has it not happened that our own minds, our relentless pursuit of understanding and analysis, have made us more unhappy than satisfied? Has the desire not arisen even for a moment to turn off the stream of thoughts and find peace in simple being? These questions deserve discussion, and it is important to remember that we are only beginning to comprehend the innermost secret of the intellect, as revealed by Schopenhauer. His further discoveries are capable of transforming not only our understanding of the mind, but also of existence as a whole. Let us delve into Schopenhauer's perspective and find out why he believed that intellect often leads to the deepest sense of loneliness. To understand this, it is necessary to turn to a key principle of his philosophy, the will to live. According to Schopenhauer, the will to live is the fundamental force driving all things. It is an unquenchable, blind impulse that compels every living being to survive, reproduce, and strive for something, even in the face of inevitable suffering. The will, this blind and relentless force, is completely indifferent to human happiness and well-being. According to Schopenhauer, we are all prisoners of this will, doomed to an endless race for desires that never bring satisfaction. And this is where the intellect comes into play. A person with a limited mind can quite happily exist in harmony with this will, mindlessly pursuing their desires and not questioning their true meaning and purpose. However, for those with high intelligence, things are different. Their developed consciousness allows them to see through the veil of illusions created by the will and to realize the futility of the endless pursuit of illusory desires which only generate new dissatisfaction. But this clarity does not come easily. it causes a deep rift between the intellectual and the rest of humanity. How can one find common ground with those who are content with superficial pleasures when deeper and darker truths of existence are revealed before one's eyes? This alienation dooms the intellectual to the role of an outside observer, deprived of the opportunity to fully participate in human life. He bears the burden of insights inaccessible to most, insights that expose the absurdity and transience of existence. But the paradox is that, according to Schopenhauer, it is precisely the intellect that isolates and burdens us that contains the key to liberation from the power of the will through the power of art and contemplation. Art, as Arthur Schopenhauer argued, provides a unique opportunity to distract from the torments generated by the will. When interacting with art, whether through the sounds of music, the pages of literature, or visual splendor, a person enters a state of unclouded perception. In these precious moments, the individual ceases to be consumed by their own desires and the relentless demands of the will. Instead, a unique sense of freedom is experienced, allowing one to simply contemplate and appreciate life, freed from the burden of constantly striving for something. As an example, consider music, which Schopenhauer regarded as the pinnacle of artistic creation. He described it as a direct expression of the will, possessing the ability to transcend the boundaries of language and intellect. Unlike other art forms that reflect various aspects of the world, music appeals to something deeper and more fundamental. It resonates with the very essence of a person, offering fleeting yet tangible solace in an otherwise restless existence. This concept may resonate deeply with personal experiences. Simply recall a moment when a piece of music, a painting, or a captivating story evoked strong emotions. In those brief moments, the hustle and bustle of everyday life seemed to dissolve, and a sense of connection to something more significant, something beyond time and space, arose. Schopenhauer was convinced that such experiences are not merely fleeting pleasures, but profound opportunities to break free from the endless cycle of suffering and touch a higher truth. Arthur Schopenhauer, the German philosopher, believed that the intellect could become a tool for achieving a state of detachment, which he called the pacification of the will. This concept implies abandoning the relentless pursuit of desires that often govern our lives and shifting towards acceptance and tranquility. By pacifying the will, one frees oneself from the endless cycle of striving and disappointment. Of course, putting this into practice is not easy, especially in the modern world where ambition, success, and continuous progress towards goals are extolled. The idea of detachment may even seem to challenge conventional norms. However, Schopenhauer's wisdom reminds us that true satisfaction lies not in achieving more or acquiring new knowledge, but in freeing ourselves from desires, expectations, and even the obsessive need to understand everything. A natural question arises. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by the pressure to constantly achieve, climb the career ladder, and strive for perfection? What if the solution lies not in increasing effort, but in reducing it? What if the key to happiness lies not in adding something new to your life, but in simplifying it? It's worth pondering this question and sharing your thoughts. Continuing our journey deeper into philosophical labyrinths, we will turn our gaze to the intertwining of Schopenhauer's thought with the ideas of other eminent minds, as well as the indelible influence that his reflections on the intellect have had on modern psychological science and philosophical thought. Undoubtedly, there is a compelling reason why his works have withstood the test of time with dignity without losing their relevance. They touch upon timeless themes of human existence, offering a kind of compass pointing the way to mental equilibrium, as essential today as it was in Schopenhauer's era. And here we encounter the most fascinating aspect. Although Schopenhauer's ideas may seem burdened with a pessimistic view of the world, they ultimately point to the possibility of finding a deep sense of freedom. By understanding the hidden costs associated with excessive intellectualism, and mastering the art of pacifying one's own will, we can achieve a state of clarity of mind and serenity of spirit, which, alas, few are given to experience. However, a natural question arises: how can we embody these valuable lessons in our daily lives? What specific steps can we take to embrace Schopenhauer's wisdom and transform our perception of intellect? Stay with us, dear readers, for what we are about to discover may prove to be the most important revelation of all. Let's take a closer look at how Schopenhauer's teachings on intellect and will can radically change everyday life. If you have ever felt that your mind has turned into a cage and your own thoughts have become an unbearable burden, then it is in the philosophy of this thinker that you can find valuable guidance and new opportunities. Schopenhauer was convinced that awareness is the first step on the path to freedom. It is crucial to learn to recognize the manifestations of the will in one's own life. As a rule, people spend precious days chasing material possessions, high social status, and universal recognition, sincerely believing that all this will bring long-awaited happiness. However, Schopenhauer rightly noted that even when the desired is achieved, the feeling of satisfaction turns out to be fleeting. The human consciousness quickly switches to new goals, thereby condemning it to an endless cycle. To break out of this vicious circle, the philosopher proposed radically changing the view of the world. Instead of tirelessly striving for external goals, it is necessary to turn to one's inner world. Start by carefully observing your aspirations, discarding criticism. Ask yourself questions. What are the motives behind these desires? What benefits do I hope to gain? Often, the goals you pursue are dictated by societal norms or fleeting impulses, not genuine needs. Such introspection can loosen the shackles of the will. However, mere awareness is insufficient. Schopenhauer emphasized the necessity of developing conscious detachment. This isn't about indifference to life, but rather the ability to interact with the world without losing oneself in it. Meditation and quiet contemplation are excellent tools for practice. By being in silence and observing the flow of thoughts, one can create distance between oneself and the continuous stream of consciousness. Gradually, this practice will allow you to gain calmness and focus even in turbulent life situations. Another helpful piece of advice from Schopenhauer is the pursuit of intellectual and artistic nourishment. He was convinced that art and philosophy could elevate a person above the burden of the will, relieving them of suffering. Immersing oneself in masterpieces of literature, symphonies, or philosophical treatises is not an escape from reality, but a way to touch the fundamental truths of existence. In moments when you listen to a breathtaking symphony or delve into reading an outstanding novel, you get a chance to go beyond the boundaries of everyday life and come into contact with the eternal. Schopenhauer's ideas have a significant impact on relationships between people. One of the paradoxes of high intelligence is the feeling of loneliness often experienced by gifted individuals who find it difficult to connect with others, feeling misunderstood and alienated. The philosopher saw the solution to this problem in the development of compassion. He argued that the awareness of the common suffering inherent in all living beings is the key to establishing a genuine connection between people. If you look at others not as rivals or obstacles, but as comrades sharing the hardships of life's journey, your perception of the world changes. This doesn't mean giving up your intellect or lowering the bar, but rather using your understanding to overcome barriers, develop empathy, and build meaningful relationships. Let's delve into one of the most controversial concepts proposed by Schopenhauer, the idea of renunciation. The philosopher was convinced that the highest stage of liberation is achieved through the rejection not only of one's own desires, but also of the dominant ego. This idea bears a clear imprint of Buddhist philosophy. Schopenhauer deeply respected the ego, with its insatiable thirst for recognition, striving for achievements and control, appears as the main source of human suffering. By reducing the influence of the ego, one gains a deeper sense of inner peace. It's important to emphasize that renunciation, in Schopenhauer's understanding, doesn't imply withdrawal from worldly life or escape from reality. Rather, it's about adopting a special approach to life characterized by detachment and humility. Instead of desperately clinging to what is desired or fiercely resisting fears, one learns to accept reality as it is. It is in this acceptance, as Schopenhauer argued, that the highest wisdom and the key to true freedom lie. It's worth considering how often a person is trapped in anxieties about the future or tormented by regrets about the past. How much mental energy is spent on futile attempts to control events and circumstances that are beyond one's influence. Imagine for a moment what it means to give up this exhausting struggle, to stop resisting the flow of life, and simply allow yourself to be. It is to this state that Schopenhauer calls. However, perhaps the most surprising thing is that Arthur Schopenhauer's philosophy, despite its reputation for being pessimistic, actually has enormous potential for personal growth. By accepting the harsh reality of life without embellishment, one gains the opportunity to discover a deeper and more genuine happiness that doesn't depend on external factors or fleeting pleasures. This happiness is rooted in a deep understanding, acceptance, and pacification of one's own will. As we approach the end of this philosophical journey, it's worth pondering the key question: what does it mean to live a life guided by reason? Schopenhauer's answer may be unexpected. In his opinion, true intelligence lies not in simply accumulating knowledge or solving puzzles, but in gaining wisdom. It's about understanding the essence of being, accepting its contradictions, and finding inner peace. In conclusion of this exploration of the hidden secret of intelligence, according to Schopenhauer, it's important to emphasize, intelligence is, of course, a gift, but at the same time, a huge responsibility. How a person decides to use this gift, whether they dedicate it to the pursuit of fleeting goals or the cultivation of eternal wisdom, will determine the direction of their life's path. If this topic sparks your interest, take a moment to share your thoughts in the comments. What reflections does the legacy of Schopenhauer's ideas evoke? Have you ever felt the burden or, conversely, the blessing of high intelligence? I invite you to continue this discussion, as questions like these can fundamentally change our perception of ourselves and the world around us. Schopenhauer himself instructed, often the most important truths lie not in our achievements, but in what we have learned to renounce. It is time to gather together the wisdom we have gained and explore how Schopenhauer's insights can transform our understanding of intelligence and, ultimately, our lives. Schopenhauer's philosophy reveals a harsh but liberating truth. The pursuit of knowledge and understanding, while commendable, is not always a guarantee of happiness. Often, it merely opens the way to a deeper awareness of the eternal struggle inherent in human existence. However, paradoxically, it is this awareness that becomes the gateway to transcendence. To truly embody Schopenhauer's teachings, one must be guided by the following principles. 1. Comprehending the duality of existence. Arthur Schopenhauer, an eminent thinker, called for an awareness that human existence is a continuous alternation of light and dark periods, times of rejoicing and sorrow. Wisdom, in his view, lies in accepting this inevitable duality rather than in futile attempts to resist it. Every moment of happiness carries with it the potential threat of loss, while in the deepest sorrow lies the seed of future growth. By accepting this dialectic, one gains the ability to look at life from a position of balance and equanimity. It is important to understand that acceptance is not synonymous with passivity or refusal to fight. On the contrary, it implies full engagement with the world around us, free from illusions and unrealistic expectations. By ceasing to naively believe that life should be a continuous stream of pleasures, One gets rid of unnecessary disappointments and gets the opportunity to truly enjoy the brief moments of peace and beauty, realizing their value precisely because of their fleeting nature. 2. The art of maintaining distance. The idea of detachment occupies a central place in Schopenhauer's philosophical system. He argued that the root of most human suffering lies in excessive attachment, material possessions, interpersonal relationships, career ambitions, and even one's own self. Detachment, however, should not be understood as a call for complete rejection of these aspects of life. Rather, it is about developing the ability to interact with them without allowing them to dominate the personality and define its essence. A good analogy is a butterfly in the hand. Squeezing too hard will kill it, while a light and gentle touch will allow you to enjoy its beauty without causing harm. This is the essence of Schopenhauerian detachment, the ability to appreciate life in all its manifestations without becoming its slave and without allowing it to enslave you. 3. A thirst for understanding the deepest essence of being. For Arthur Schopenhauer, art, philosophical inquiry, and keen self-analysis were not merely intellectual exercises, but vital tools for facing life's challenges with dignity. It is these pursuits that provide a unique opportunity to break free from the relentless demands of the will to live and to feel an inextricable connection with something that transcends our mortal existence. When a listener wholeheartedly surrenders to the magical sounds of a symphony, when a reader is absorbed in the vicissitudes of a captivating novel, or when a person delves into deep contemplation, they are not running away from reality, but on the contrary, filling their life with new meaning. In such moments, there is a touch with the eternal, all-encompassing and sublime, and one goes beyond one's individual, limited existence. 4. Compassion as the quintessence of human connection. One of Schopenhauer's most poignant revelations was the all-conquering power of compassion. Recognizing the common struggle for existence shared by all living beings, one opens the way to a deeper connection with the world around us. Compassion allows one to see the world beyond personal experience, to show kindness and understanding to others. This not only benefits those around us, but also transforms the person themselves, making them better. Shedding the shackles of loneliness that intelligence sometimes imposes, one feels part of an all-encompassing world, contributing to it, making it a little softer and more humane. The pacification of the mind and the taming of the will, which is the cornerstone of Schopenhauer's philosophy, is not an escape from reality, but the attainment of harmony within it. The source of this harmony is the taming of the insatiable desires of the will and the cultivation of inner peace. Various practices such as mindfulness, meditation, or simply time spent in nature can be faithful helpers on this path. Imagine the tranquil surface of a lake mirroring the azure sky. In that moment, the mind is quiet and serene, the heart filled with lightness, and the world appears in its entirety. According to Schopenhauer, this state of harmony is accessible to anyone who learns to restrain their will. Concluding our journey into the innermost secrets of Schopenhauer's understanding of intellect, it is worth revisiting the question posed at the beginning. Is intellect a blessing or a curse? As has become clear, the answer lies in duality. Intellect can isolate, burden, and reveal the unsightly aspects of life, but at the same time, it can elevate, liberate, and connect a person with the deepest beauty and mystery of existence. Humanity faces a dilemma: to turn its mind into a source of endless torment, or to direct its energy towards self-improvement, empathy, and spiritual growth. Arthur Schopenhauer's philosophical reflections persistently remind us that true wisdom lies not in escaping from life's realities, but in fully and unconditionally accepting them, with all their inherent contradictions and complexities. In this regard, as we progress along life's path, it is worth setting aside time to reflect on the experiences and knowledge gained. How does one intend to use their intellect, not only to comprehend the world around them, but also to transform it for the better? What steps will one take to restrain their will and cultivate a sense of peace and purpose within themselves? And most importantly, how will one interact with others, relying on their intellect rather than in spite of it? It is essential to remember that, according to Schopenhauer's teachings, the deepest and most valuable revelations often come through the awareness of the paradoxical nature of human existence. Intellect is not merely a heavy burden, but also a bright beacon illuminating the path to a deeper and more authentic life, filled with meaning and compassion.